to business ethics, marriage, state affairs, and so on and so forth. So there are so many components to Islam. But Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam says, when you look at all of the components of Islam, at-tuhuru shatrul iman. Half of all of these components comprise of cleanliness and purification. Meaning, just as important as Hajj is in our mind, our salah, our zakah, our halal and haram consumption, halal and haram income, as important as these things are, equally, if not more important, is tahara and purification. Last night we spoke about the importance of ensuring when we relieve ourselves that no amount of impurity gets onto our clothes. And that's why, especially if we're using masjid restrooms, it's our responsibility that after using the restroom, that we clean up after ourselves. Because if we leave some impurity over there and we leave, and somebody else comes and their clothes get impure, I am responsible for any burden that that person is going to bear. So we have to be very careful for our sake and for the sake of other people as well. So that's the first step. After a person's done relieving themselves, then they're going to go and perform wudu. In terms of wudu, the ablution, wudu, there are two ways of looking at it. One is the essentials, without which your wudu is unaccepted. And the second are the sunan and highly encouraged things. Just to give you like an example, if it is really cold and raining outside, the main thing you need is a shelter. The main thing you need is a shelter and something to block you off. So if you go inside of a tent, you will get that shelter from the rain, from the cold, but it's not the best place to be, but it will suffice. But if you're inside of your home with the heat on, under your blankets, that's highly encouraged and that is beautiful, right? Two different scenarios. In a very similar case, in our wudu, we have what is the bare minimum, just kind of like that shelter that will make our wudu valid. But then we have something that is highly encouraged and very important to Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, which is known as the sunnah. I'm going to start with what is most important because we need to emphasize what is most important first before we proceed on to those things that are recommended. These are what's mentioned in the Quran. In Surah Al-Ma'idah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala explains to us that what are the fundamental components of your wudu. إذا قمتم إلى الصلاة فاغسلوا وجوهكم وأيديكم إلى المرافق وامسحوا برؤوسكم وأرجلكم إلى الكعبين. There are four things that we have to ensure with utmost thoroughness. Four things we have to make sure. The first is make sure your face is washed. And when we're talking about washing our face, we're not talking about just taking water and slapping it on your face and moving on. It means where your hairline is, my hairline, that's the beginning part of the demarcation. Then I go to where my earlobe is. And then I go to the bottom of my chin, and then I carry on to my earlobe, and I carry on to my hairline. Oftentimes when we wash our faces, we just take water and we splash our faces, not realizing that a significant portion of our face is left dry. And this is most important in the morning when we're waking up for Fajr. Sometimes a person, he wants to go to sleep after he prays Fajr Salah. So he thinks to himself, if I wash my face a bit too much, I'm going to lose my sleep. So I'm going to close my eyes, I'm going to wash my face and make sure my eyes aren't touching with water. No, I have to be very careful to make sure that the water touches every inch of my face. Those of us who have thick beards, we have to make sure that even if I don't have the water dripping, I do khilal. I get the water in between, or I do masah of my beard. That's the first part, where you wash your entire face. I've seen way too many times people, no need to take names or whatnot, just whether in the masjid or outside, you'll see people, when they're making wudu, it's like in 2 minutes, you just take the water, you splash your face, and you carry on. We have to be very clear. Even if you do it once, it's more important to thoroughly wash your face once than 3 times doing it haphazard. Take the water and make sure you wash your face. There are other parts to it as well. Then you wash your arm. When you wash your arm, this is a common mistake when we wash our arm. We do not fold up our sleeves properly enough. So when the water is going, I have my sleeves covering my elbow, and now when it's getting wet, everything is getting wet except my elbow. My elbow is included in my wudu. So when I'm washing, I have to make sure my elbow is washed. When I do masj on my head, I have to make sure at least 1/4. Ideally my whole head, but at least 1/4. When I'm washing my feet, I have to make sure my ankles are always washed. Oftentimes the part of the foot that gets overlooked is this part of the foot right next to the ankle. What happens? I'm taking water, I'm putting it on my foot and I'm touching it, not realizing that the cavity, the space from the ankle to the rest of the foot it's a bit deep. So the water doesn't go over there. And I'm starting my salah, I say Allahu Akbar, I go into ruku, I look at my feet, I see my whole foot is wet, but there's a dry patch over there. If I notice a dry patch on my feet, that means my salah never began. I have to start all over again. So these are just a few etiquettes. Honestly, this requires a seminar for wudu. A lot of people, subhanAllah, if hypothetically during Jumu'ah, if I'm to get on the minbar and start to talk about wudu, a lot of people will complain saying, you're not talking about something relevant. Talk about politics, talk about something more relevant. Why are you talking about wudu? In fact, wudu is the most relevant thing that we could do. Unfortunately, wudu is one of those things which we think we know, but oftentimes we're not even sure about it. We're missing out some of the basic components. This is a long topic, inshallah. Over the next few days, we'll touch on more and more how we can perfect our tahara. And once we perfect our tahara, we have perfected half of our faith. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala inspire us all. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala increase us in half of our faith and the other half as well. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala never allow us to become negligent in becoming clean and pure. Ameen ya Rabbil Alameen. Jazakumullahu khairan. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.